Good morning, everybody. I wanted to do something special to you, and I'm currently, as you can see, joined by I almost called you my other half. We work together a lot. His wife, your wife would object to that. This is Mike. He spent a lot of time in law enforcement, and as you all know, I'm a military historian. And we spend a lot of time working in strange secret locations, as you can see why you're blurred out and why we're half diffuse in here. But we spend a lot of time talking, and one of the things that Mike knows a lot about is things that happens online and internet and technology, and things I started noticing, as many of you probably have. As a historian, I do a lot of research, and I have complained for years about how and why things are getting harder and harder to find, especially, unless you know, I do a lot of World War II stuff. That sometimes involves these nasty people called Nazis. You know, that makes it increasingly harder for me to find what I'm looking for. And then Mike started filling in the clues that I sort of been noticing and about why and how things really are disappearing. Because they are, aren't they?
They are.
They are.
And it's almost at an increasingly faster and faster pace.
It's been going.
I think the more you see Google implement their changes, it just kind of feeds the machine even more and more. And convenience comes at a cost because people are forgetting slowly how to use just basic research tools. Yeah,
because it's not like you read a book. The book's not going to change its text. But a website will change or disappear. Text on the website will change. And we have another computer set up for reference, because what we both have done, not as a coordinated effort, is start to save everything. Download videos, download speeches, download research materials, because it disappears.
And as you guys see from the latest attack on the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine it's how important that is. It's almost the equivalent of today's or the past's book burning. You see a lot of information that's been collaboratively compiled on the Internet Archive, and how easy it was to just take them down for a few days, or even, I think they're still out now. So,
but the Internet Archive is it's non-political. It's a non-profit. It's not even American.
Well, it's not owned by the U.S. I think one of the claims in the group being Black Meta claimed that it's owned by the U.S. and their reasoning for doing what they did was that being part of the reason. So their logic is kind of flawed and doesn't really make too much sense, which is why you're seeing a lot of people question who's behind the attacks. The timing, at least for us in the U.S., and maybe for some abroad, seems a little suspicious as we're nearing a huge election.
There's that.
Yeah,
I almost forgot.
You know, so it's a lot of those little important tidbits that, you know, it's easier and easier to control some of those things and how quickly they can be gone.
But in order to, I think everybody saw it during the flu season a few years ago.
There you go.
The flu season. Everybody saw how information was skewed and outright censored. Every conversation that would detract from the official narrative was attacked in every which way. And that's when I think most people started seeing it from then on.
And one of the few things you kind of see just from watching the news is the constant ticker of death tolls, and anything you search on Google having ties to some death count, some illness count. And so
I think it's time to win people over.
And with that, at home,
I thought we were gonna do this later, but okay, you need to be convinced. Now, if you're here and you're listening to us and my channel, you probably know that I have a slight disbelief in mainstream media and legacy media, because I have a very good reason to, because I've seen it from the inside. We've both seen it from both sides of the uniform spectrum. Yeah. How stories change, get destroyed, disappear, and none of us saw it more clearly than 4 years ago during flu season. And one of the things that came up, and he told me about it, is like, what to prove that there's actually a very real direction of internet results, where you actually very real, and we're going to do it live time. We're going to show you. There's very real subversion of the search results you get. So, where did Google go? There's Google. Now, you want to present?
So one of the popular things that was that you could do to prove to people that some of this stuff is kind of it's controlled by Google. You could take a number from 1 to 9,999, type it into the Google search engine, and type in COVID cases afterwards.
I'm not even going to look at the numbers. I'm just going to random hit.
Just give me.
Okay, apparently, I'm not
give me more.
If I unlock my keypad, apparently, if I could figure out how to
unlock.
That's a number.
There we go.
That's a number. It has 4. Let's see what comes up.
Wait. You got to type in the magic words at the end.
Oh, cases?
You know what?
What is the magic word?
It'd be COVID cases.
Ooh. Flu cases.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, let's see. Let's go down.
Iran records 3,521 COVID-19 cases, death toll.
Holy shit.
Flu cases, my bad.
Flu cases.
Sorry.
It's as if I was psychic there. I just came and ran a number. Now, listen. Would you like to come up random numbers off?
Can I try another one?
You can try random. I should probably delete the old number.
Oh yeah. How about you do that before I?
Well, okay, just blindfolded. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
531. All right. Let's see what we get.
What do we get?
U.S. Daily, L.A. County Daily.
Let's scroll on down. You'll get at least one search result with that number in the title. Yeah, there you go.
531 million cases.
But then underneath that, Prairie Public and the COVID 531 new cases. All right, let's try another number. I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced either. I mean, 2 out of 2, that's almost weird.
Your clairvoyance is growing on me.
I thought I was psychotic. I'm actually psychic.
Just do a...
Is that 4 number? I didn't look. I was looking at the screen.
You got a little
enthusiastic there in the number.
A little too crazy.
See, if we were live, we would just do this live and have
78.
78. That's a low number. That's happens every day around us here. What do we got? 78% of Americans aren't worried about COVID. That's fairly random. Come on, it's got to be here. It's 70.
Yeah, 78% is going to be the study find 78% of people hospitalized.
Oh, let's see.
Well, you got it in the 78%.
I got it the 78%.
They're giving you a COVID title, a COVID flu season.
You know, I'm going to put up a 3 in front of that just for the hell of it, and because I just think it's not low enough. Now it's going to skip 378 new ones. See, the 3 made all the difference.
They're there. They're all there. You can go like I said, 1 through 9,999.
Oh, still there.
Wait, what?
What are we doing?
We're frozen.
We're frozen. All right. And we're not, and we're still recording. Oh, this is still moving. Almost get back to us again for a minute. We're frozen. Why are we frozen? Still recording. Oh, God. Interesting.
Can you end the recording?
There we're back. So that was the weirdest thing. The moment we started talking about flu cases, we got shut down there for a minute. You get the idea, though. Any number, you just punch in a number and see cases, and something comes up. That should tell you that the internet is directed in any which way.
It's guiding you to what they want you to know.
Yeah.
That being propaganda in its newest form. Yeah. Everyone's heard of the term mockingbird media. or Operation Mockingbird.
Back in the 50s or 60s, when the CIA began outright hiring assets in entertainment and TV and news and media, and they've been doing that. Mockingbird never stopped. There's been influence of government agencies into media, into news forever. And now, after the internet came online, they found another problem that was harder to control, because all of a sudden you have all this free speech going on online, and everybody's talking and exchanging ideas, and now the powers that be are feeling threatened. NATO, to some degree, apparently felt threatened, and especially from these entities. Let's just call it the blob, because this is a conglomeration of agencies, of militaries, of intel, of state departments, governments that are using nonprofits, that are using various NGOs, various civilian companies, military contractors. These are a group, an entity that wants to keep their narrative. They want to make their money. They don't want to rock the boat. And they see nationalist parties around the world as much as a threat as Islamic terrorists, which is a bit of a strange. I don't know. That's one thing I understand. Now I'm taking us off track because I haven't figured this out yet. It is claimed that NATO sees right-wing politicians, nationalists, and in my world, nationalists just is another word for a patriotic entity. I don't know what it means in how they see it. I just see a patriot as somebody who loves their country, and a patriotic country. You know, I don't see it as you see right wing, and they always go straight to Hitler for some strange reason. I don't really see it that way. I'm just going to go for individuals who love of their own country. Apparently, that seems to have been deemed by some entities within NATO and state that is a threat to their existence. I don't see why.
I think the term they've been using, it's an isolationist mentality.
That's what it is.
So you're basically being selfish, Tino.
Oh,
if you want to care about your own people.
How dare I? So if every country starts caring about their own people first, but would that be a threat to NATO?
That's a novel concept.
I know. It's like caring about your country. But why can't you? But you should still love your own country and still be part of NATO for joint protection. Exactly. I don't see why that wouldn't be the case.
Unless there's an ulterior motive to what NATO wants.
I'm saying the government entities have ulterior motives other than what's best for their nation.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, please.
But you see NATO digging their fingers in a lot of places that they don't belong. You know, pre 2016, I think 2014 up to 2015, there was a job application title for NATO that came out and was put on the internet on their site for basically somebody with expertise in gun removal. That
was under Obama that was published as a state, as a there's several positions within government with that particular notation. Yes.
And there were positions for that on the East Coast and the West Coast. Yeah. So you could almost see that there was something they wanted to do here.
Yeah.
Which is why we're slowly seeing gun rights just take little bits and pieces from us, a piece at a time, you know, over a long period of time, which essentially they achieve their goal and what they want. They want to disarm the American public, you know, by propagandizing and glorifying, not glorifying, but indirectly showing you all these shootings that happen.
Yeah.
What most people don't realize is statistically, though, you see that 93+% of all firearm related crime are committed with what the FBI deem crime weapons, which would be ghost guns, guns that are stolen, guns that are made illegally, not owners, people that rightfully, they do everything right, they purchase them, not people that are law-abiding citizens that own guns, that do the right thing. They're not even guns that are associated with those people. So they want to, off of a small percentage, they want to take guns away from everyone.
I mean, the gun control conversation have never been based on truth in any which way.
No.
I've never, they go after CCWs, concealed carry permits. I don't remember an illegal shooting having ever been carried out by anybody with a CCW, ever in this country.
Yeah.
And what's very interesting is, and especially a lot of Europeans, and you're sitting there in your living room, and a lot of you are going like, why do you want all your guns? Well, for one, personally, well, we carry guns to protect other people and ourselves and our families at work or not at work. That's pretty straightforward. But also to be able to protect ourselves and our families and the people around us. Because, well, especially now that you let in the past 3-4 years, 10 million illegal aliens, where what 1.7 million of them are criminals. There's been deemed, I think that was the number.
1.7, yeah.
And you see the same thing in Europe. It's not, and it's not that I have a problem with people from Africa or Middle East or wherever, but the people who are leaving their countries are usually not the ones who are doing well and good, upstanding citizens of that country. A lot of them are criminals fleeing or being kicked out.
Well, there's motives too.
There are motives.
A lot of that.
And what I'm seeing in England is more and more of a talk. And you have disarmed all of Europe and England. You haven't disarmed us yet. You want to. What is the problem you're seeing in England now? You have mass violence, attacks, rape gangs, grooming gangs, acid attacks, stabbings. You have so much violence committed against women, against people. And the British won't even allow women to carry mace or taser or tear gas, anything, nothing. And you are so unhappy with the government in England now for what they've done and what they are doing. That's a completely different conversation, not relevant here. But you have no recourse. And the governments, well, we'll just call them the army, you'll have the police. You have no recourse. If we are faced with a dictatorial government, which we may well be any moment now, at least they know they have to hold back, because there's way too many Americans that are actually willing to protect their country and the freedoms of people and the safety of people from dictatorial overreach. And I think that is the main reason why they're coming, that they've gone for the gun control. They don't care about criminals. Gun control has nothing to do with protecting people from criminals. They don't care.
No. How does that phrase go? Is when you outlaw guns, the only ones who have guns are outlaws? Is that how that goes?
Yeah. I mean, you look at every...
They're not going to get them the way that you're supposed to. They're going to get them through illegal means, which unfortunately is happening through a porous border and you know, lackluster care for security.
And you see the cities, the big cities with heavy gun control are some of the most dangerous ones. And the statistics, actually, if you actually get the true statistics, but of course, again, statistics are pretty much milled out of a machine based on whoever's paying them to create the statistics, because you can pretty much, by numbers, you can prove anything you get paid to prove. But one of the things, just to get us back on track again before we start solving all the world's problems, how do they do this? How do they do it? That's your thing. We'll get back to who they are later and why, but I think it's important for people to know how this is happening, especially online.
Well, I think circa, let's see, what was it? I think around 2014, they had said that over 50% of hyperlinks associated with court cases and documents of like law relevance, a lot of those hyperlinks are dead. And one of the few places you can go to look up some of those hyperlinks or pull up some of those websites that no longer exist, if you type them in on the ClearNet, would be Wayback Machine, places like Internet Archive. And I think that was kind of the original crux of this whole conversation that we had started, was what you're seeing with the Internet Archive through this group that claims this, that, the other stuff that doesn't make sense, is that it's like modern day book burning, because there's so much information on that website, and there's so much information you can go back and look at that maybe certain entities don't want you going back to look at, that it's just a way of obfuscating more and more history.
you can ask yourself, what honest entity wants to delete information? Good, bad, right, wrong. It's about having all information out there, or again, stifle communication. Is this linked to that internet theory?
This somewhat does. That's another rabbit hole.
Well, I pulled the rabbit out. So what is the dead internet theory again, for those who don't know?
Well, conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it, but basically suggests that much of the internet we interact with today is artificially generated, controlled by automated bots and artificial intelligence. According to this theory, a significant portion of online content, social media posts, and even internet users are not real, but rather produced by AI bots, government agencies to influence public opinion, manipulate social behaviors, and obscure the truth. And it is well known that right now there's more bot traffic on the internet than there is actual human traffic.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the way that is presented, because there is so many bots that on everything.
Yeah, the best is when somebody gets into an argument on, let's just say X, with a bot. I mean, can you imagine how much more annoyed you'd be if you realized you were arguing with a bot in your argument over something you think that you hold very highly relevant to your own?
I get it when I get weird comments and things pop up on my chat on my videos. I will go back and see if is this an entity that exists? Is this there's no videos, there's no history, it was created yesterday? Okay.
And the exercise that we did in the beginning of the video was basically there to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Probably out of order a little bit, but it calls that kind of into question. You're probably hearing the term a little bit more now than you did circa 6 years ago. But that theory has been around for a while, and people have believed that something like that would happen even prior to it even happening. Because bot traffic has always been a huge crux of what makes up the internet. It's used for a lot of different things.
And speaking of that, I want to point out one of the things bots are used for. Now, we now live in a world where you can imitate people and their voices to the point where it will be almost true to the naked ear. There has been ransom calls where you say, little Sophie, she's in Mexico, and all of a sudden Sophie calls her granddad on her phone and says she's been kidnapped and he needs to send $10,000 or they'll kill her, and and he does. And little Sophie's been sitting on the beach the whole time, but somebody mirrored her phone, heard her voice, recorded it, recreated it. These things have happened. I'm at the point when I call a customer service agent, my first question is, are you a human being? That usually freaks out the ones who are human beings. However, it also denotes, I guess, a level of paranoia on my part. But you heard of deep fakes? I don't know. This is interesting. I got to tell you a piece of funny information. This is a funny. I'm not necessarily buying into this, but this is funny. You have now software. They've been really busy rolling out software that can detect a deep fake. On if they look at a video of so here's the president fly fishing, and it's created by somebody else, and you go like, oh, that's a deep fake. You have computer programs, they'll run this footage through, says it's a deep fake. So on one of these more of the credible programs, they ran the moon landing. It had 200 points of contention saying it was a deep fake. I'm just saying. I'm like,
what's interesting about how you see any rollout in technology is generally they won't release anything that can't be controlled. So people are focused highly right now on AI. But in my opinion, AI is probably not the main focus for, technology.
Not yet.
Although everyone's taking it, running with it. They're doing amazing things with it. I'm not knocking it. But I think the entities in power are already a step ahead. So with that, you're seeing a lot of messengers implement quantum hardening into their into their encryption. And I think quantum computers are the thing that people aren't paying attention to. And one of the big companies behind quantum computing right now, I mean, back when I first heard about it, it was the D-Wave machine that had come out. And I think only a few entities had had it, and one of which was Google, that I believe purchased one of those machines. But now you have IBM working on even crazier machines that are just 1,000,000 times more powerful than that initial one. So that is another topic that can take us down a whole other road. But, you know, back to what we were initially focusing on was just this control of information. And that they won't release something unless they can control it. You know, why would you set a tiger loose in your backyard if you had no means of escape? You know.
So did the internet run away with them?
I think at a certain point there were learning lessons, and they implemented it maybe prematurely, and they're starting to try to reel it back in. The problem with that, though, is that it's becoming increasingly more and more obvious to people that are paying attention that this is exactly what they're doing. And it's, you know, just start with Google. Search something that, you know, you're curious about, that may be considered conspiratorial or you know, not woke enough for today's climate, and Google generally won't present you with any relevant search terms or search results for it. You got to either scroll way down. You know, it's going to tell you it found 3 billion searches, but it'll only present you with maybe 7 pages before it repeats itself. That's another one that people don't realize. You're never going to click down 30 pages to look for what you need. You're just going to research what you want after maybe clicking 3 different tabs. And if you keep going, the tabs generally will end up just telling you, oh, there's nothing else that we can provide you that matches your relevant search, even though it tells you at the bottom that there's millions of pages with your search result, but they don't want to give it to you. So,
and you're too lazy to actually go through all the other millions, or you don't have the time to go through them.
And you know, they can make comments about, oh yeah, you know, I've gone to the 14th tab and I found what I needed there. Please, if somebody's done that, tell me. And let me know what you were looking for, because I want to try that. I've never gone more than 3 tabs. I generally just refine my search, and if I can't find it, then I switch to other means, you know?
And that really is the problem. You can't find it because they don't want you to find it. If it is anything that is relevant. Have you noticed how, take a wonderful platform like YouTube, they will promote any kind of fluff and silly theories and, you know, transgender harmonica repair or whatever, music videos, entertainment, mindless entertainment. They will promote and mindless entertainment. But if you have serious, in-depth discussions, leading back to history again, that's hard to find.
Genuine information.
Genuine information. Exactly. I've so many times I have saved a lecture or a speech or something that even slightly controversial in their eyes. Civil War, I saved a few of those. Mike Benz, I saved a few of his lectures. And when I come in and look for them again, they're just gone. And that's not an accident, that these things are packed away until you get them to the 10th or 5th or 6th search, or they'll get DDoXed or whatever else. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know, and it just goes back to what we said initially, was archiving your information. You know, because generally what ends up happening with things like Internet Archive is that's pulled information from people that were smart enough to archive stuff a long time ago. And thank God you have people now that are willing to continue archiving stuff. But then you have entities that are going after these archives. Why? You know, whether they want to sue them for copyright infringement. You know, in my opinion, there should at least be a pass for certain websites that are trying to preserve history. But it doesn't seem like that's that's the current interest when history conflicts with the current propaganda.
And remember that the current predominant idea of, shall we call them the globalist elite, because that is sort of where we are. Their concept is what you would say akin to a cultural Marxism, because the ideas have sprung from Marxism and they have just migrated and mutated into what is today. And one of those mutations is you have to, in order to take over a fairly healthy country like a Western country or America, is you have to destroy its historical past. Because if people have historical artifacts, important, to hang on to and to remind them of their history. You see this in England, UK, you see it in America, you'll see it in Europe, because you can always tie a country down into the negatives of what it did in the past or may have done in the past. And by doing that, by destroying those symbols of their history, their statues, the names of founding fathers or people who have done things that may not be considered appropriate today, you destroy history and now you hide it. So the next generation grows up without any reference to that historical past, and they won't know. And for me as a historian, it's very interesting that it's interesting to me to see that any reference to the Third Reich, which is used as the eternal boogeyman, is seen as a negative. Just to prove a case in point, here's a video that might do that.
So there's the people generally, if you're not tracking what we're trying to tell you, it's basically right now we're just experiencing, or we're in the middle of what you would consider a large-scale information war.
Yes.
And it's things that are, a lot of people are completely oblivious to it because technology may not be their niche. The problem is technology is the new media for delivering some of these attacks. So with that, there was a video put out a few years back by the 4th PSYOP group with the military. And it kind of demonstrates what we're saying. So we'll actually watch it right now. And then I'll point a few things out for you. That's an awesome quote, by the way.
Yeah. And this is one of the strangest military videos I've ever seen.
Oh, it is.
This is
demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby.
that is it.
Whispering.
I make military videos for Stratcom. This is just so weird.
That adds
so much symbolism in there.
Yeah. I mean, just in the beginning.
You say your last.
I mean, it fairly clear defines who the enemies are, or as we are being told the enemies are.
But here we go. This is important.
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is to enter the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by Cyborg.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldiers. And at the same time,
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
gripping at my skin, the walls of night closing.
But the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
And you see
Say my last goodbye.
right there. That should send chills down your spine.
I mean, if I didn't know we had done this, we as in supposedly the good guys, it would freak me the hell. I would never have thought this came out of DOD. Was that money going off the back of that?
Flyers, probably.
We'll go with that then.
Propaganda drops.
These are the Psy-War soldiers.
That is just
So
beyond weird.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of symbolism. How far do you guys want to take that?
Well,
It's,
why don't
you
you
know,
lead them on?
I mean, basically, that video is there's a lot of symbolism enshrined in that video. Depending on how far you want to take that, maybe what your knowledge is behind what the military does and how they operate abroad, how the CIA historically has done things to influence people. But the clown in the television set should kind of stand out to most people that are familiar with this. But yeah, the clown show and or clowns in America. I'll let you figure out what that term means. But dancing in a television that's not on fire. And as they kind of show you the progression of warfare and what it's evolving into, instead of what we know it to be, a bunch of people standing on a battlefield, you know, what's kind of what we're seeing happen in Ukraine to a certain extent.
I mean, just the sentence "we are everywhere" is
Yeah,
ominous.
very ominous. And by the end of that, you see that the clown walking in the television set that's now burning gets disappeared, if you want to say it that way, by a witch and a, let's just say, I don't know if you want to refer to them as witches and warlocks or wizards and warlocks, but the interesting correlation there was, I think, a reference that Snowden had made back in 2019 to the NSA, or to no such agency, but that was an inside term for operators, higher level operators at the NSA.
I mean, what's interesting about those videos is for people who just watch it. I've done videos for military department, and they don't look like that. And if I presented something like that to my chain of command, they would probably send me back home or send me off on a mental leave or something. This is very specific, a very specific targeted video with symbolism that not everybody will know, but the people who know will know.
And
it's a message, which is interesting because, and again, is just to take that full round. There's a lot of you may not know just how much of an influence intelligence agencies at times have on the entertainment you're actually seeing on the TV shows or documentaries of things you may watch. And there have been large mainstream movies that from time to time have deleted scenes because an agency have called them and said that's too close to home, or have rewritten things or added things, or films that have been created to float an idea or a concept to gauge how public reaction would be before they did a certain event. I mean, how many times have you seen a series of movies comes out of a certain topic, and then a couple of years later, that topic plays out in real life? And it's not for anything that you see the same thing. I think what I actually want to say, I want to bring up the term deep state in a minute, because it's one of those misunderstood terms that I think has to tie into who's actually controlling things on behalf of political agendas and money and businesses. I think this is what I have we not become, is this not the pinnacle of what Eisenhower said in his warning speech when he left, where he said, beware of the military-industrial complex. This is the industrial complex. This is money and politics and agenda that has now gotten the ultimate tool of control over speech and communication.
100%.
Back in the day, an agency, if they wanted, and you saw how the Cold War, the CIA was doing a good job on behalf of American Western interests by doing whatever they could to erode things in the Eastern countries behind the war. And the Soviet Union's fall was, in some part, as a result of a lot of work the CIA and the Asian agencies did. They certainly did push. But if they wanted a story told in a newspaper, they'd have to go to that newspaper and talk to that editor. If they wanted a news story feed on the TV news, they would have to go to that network. Have you noticed, I don't know, you probably noticed, how many former State Department and agency employees are currently working as executives in network and media right now? Now they don't have to. They can just call their old buddies. It just all happens organically. Have you ever seen, like, every time you see this, and this happens both in Europe and America, where all of a sudden a story is put out, or it's being and happening is being responded to with exactly the same terminology across every newspaper, every media, across the world. And don't tell me a brief didn't go out, because we know when Kamala Harris all of a sudden got pegged to be presidential candidate, a literal brief, and it was leaked, piece of paper, talking points was leaked. This is just an example I'm using here because it was the most recent one that went out, and all of a sudden every entity denied the same thing, said the same thing, used the same terminology. You see it in England too when we talk about the riots. Is this the deep state that we really are dealing with? An entity that truly controls part of the narrative?
What we're seeing is I don't want to say the machine, because that just seems too
blob again.
Yeah, it's just basically groups with interests. They don't want to see their interests dissolve into mush at the behest of internet trolls. So they're gonna try to play up their propaganda even harder. And the way that comes out is you look at Kamala. One of the last videos that was put out for their campaign, their advertisements, it's so, it's just so weird. They did it so weird, and it doesn't prove their point, and people kind of looked at the video and thought it was done as a joke. And you know what? Maybe I'll just pull it up.
Then while you pull it up, I'll do another, for some of you that are sitting wondering how this is happening to you. And I think the flu season 4 years ago really woke up a lot of people to the fact that the mainstream media narrative is not really the one you can trust. And I know if we go back to the Gulf War, where we're all sitting glued to CNN, or 9/11, where we were sitting, we were believing what we were being told, almost hands down. We believed the narrative. That's why it is very hard sometimes to tell fellow soldiers that they may not have gone to war for the reason they thought. But that's a whole different story. Where we now, 4 years later, and it is so tangible that what was told in those flu season years have now changed to the point where if I see it on mainstream media, I will categorically not believe it until it's dissected thoroughly by independents. And I'm using the term independence because you have to remember almost every independent fact checker is not independent. They're taking money from, again, State Department, from Endowment of Democracy with Soros money. Those kind of people are giving these entities money, which is giving them a way to control national and foreign elections all over Europe. Look at Brazil, how Brazil's election was completely controlled, co-opted by State Department. 2014 Ukrainian election, You have you have the color revolution, State Department. You have all these entities that are forcing their opinion, and the fact checkers are just used to ban anybody they don't like. Any opinion they don't like, given their narrative, you won't hear about them. And I always wondered, because Europeans are generally very common sense type of people, but they have vilified anybody with a patriotic bent or anything you would call a nationalist, or somebody to the right, or even somebody in the center, because everything has shifted so far that where the Kennedy today would be a Republican, just to give you an idea from what he believes in. Reagan would be in the center today.
We're so far left of
we
center.
We have moved
right
so
now,
far left of center that when you say right wing, I mean, I hate to talk politics, but they always say, they always, hell, we're doing it anyway. Donald Trump is an extreme right winger. There's not really anything he said that is extreme. It is actually very mainstream mellow. Sometimes I'm a little annoyed that he's too nice.
People are too lazy to figure that out for themselves.
But you've been told this narrative from everywhere, and based on the current thinking of back in the day, if you see it on TV, it must be true. And in Europe, a lot of Europeans, unfortunately, I don't know if it's, correct me if I'm wrong, do it in the chat, tell me, because I would love to hear that there's actually a more resistance to what's going on. Because in Europe, you can see it. For decades, you have seen, I hate to use immigrants as the whipping boy in this conversation, but it's so easy. You have seen millions of illegal immigrants and immigrants coming into European countries, and a lot of the violent crime has been committed by them, drug deals, rapes, gang rapes. It just is. Even if they lie about the statistics, or they obfuscate them, or they hide them, again, we're back to internet searches. They will make it as hard as possible for you to actually prove that, yeah, actually most of the rapes and gang rapes are done by immigrants. But on the street, young women, women, that you are not safe. Yet, at the election time, it's always the right sides are vilified to a staggering degree. The left is upheld, and also they change their mind. Now they come a little bit more to the right, so they see more mainstream, will protect you, and then they swoop right back again after the election. But the right never get a chance. They get DDoSed, they get deplatformed, they get trolled because of this blob from here that is dictating what you can and cannot see online. And if you can't have a political campaign, if you get taken offline, if you made a non-entity, like they did in Brazil, like they're doing in Germany, and if that doesn't work and it becomes a true grassroots movement, that's what they have to shut down. And that's why you don't hear as much from one side than about the other. You found something now that I'm done ranting.
Well, for this, but to piggyback off of that, I mean, you see what's happening with like a lot of these quote unquote hacker groups that probably are working at the behest of a government. So the government has a patsy for, just throwing somebody out the window when they don't want to take the blame for it.
Yes.
But what you're seeing is a lot of data issues and internet hacks, whatever you want to call it. A lot of these hacker groups or hacks come from North Korea, which is kind of weird. There's a lot of them that do. I'm not going to say all of them. But then you have these other groups and these other entities, and it's generally that has become the new way that governments can go after other countries for information.
Even your own government can use them as, I mean,
so it's. I mean, you like I said, they generally wouldn't release anything that they don't have complete control over. It was almost like VPNs. VPNs. A while back when VPNs started to become popular.
And let's not forget who actually developed them as well.
Yeah.
Same people.
And it's known that, I mean, governments can easily figure out what you're pushing through a VPN.
Yes.
Because it's just compressed, encrypted data. So they decompress it, decrypt it, and then recompress it, and they figure out what's, what you're saying. But they've become really popular. It's generally It's generally just used now to obfuscate information from your ISP,
virus protection,
your service provider.
Yeah,
so your internet service provider, which will probably send you a letter if you're downloading something you shouldn't be downloading. You probably won't get those letters if you're using a VPN. That's probably the only benefit to it now. And what do they say? If you're on a streaming service and they only have media that's catered to your area, and you switch your area, you get that new media. So
yeah.
There are positives and negatives, but this was the campaign ad that was created by Kamala and Tim's some of their followers. But it's such.
Were the followers that did it?
I forgot who the dude that did it was. It was like a collab of supposedly Hollywood producers or something.
Okay.
In this video, it's done in such a way where you don't know. They made it so you understand what the point is, but it's done in such a way to where you think it's a joke. I'll let you watch it.
That's it.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough. I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Meat. Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
What? I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
Man up, get involved. Vote Kamala and
So you get a couple of feminine guys. Okay, first of all, I want to see that dude bench deadlift 500 because that ain't gonna happen. I can see those long legs there. That no. What the hell was that again?
This is a campaign ad.
I mean, first of all, they have broken the key psychological profiling of any kind of political speech or messaging is if a sentence is more than 3 sentences, there's more than 3 lines in a sentence, most people have forgotten how it started before it ends. So they have drifted out long ago. They're already putting on the coffee halfway through this before they figure out what you're actually on about. That's the truth of it. It is so long and intricate that no one's going to watch this to the end.
I mean, I didn't realize it was that long, and I almost wanted to click it off.
I know, it seemed like this is...
I figured it was your first time watching it. That technically was my first time watching the whole thing. I thought it was a lot shorter, but even the shorter portion just showed... It just almost sounds like they're trolling themselves.
It does a little bit. But you're right. The way he was sitting, you're a Judy Garland fan.
Yeah, right?
You're bad.
We need to bring ourselves back to ground zero.
I mean, I feel sorry for those people who make commercials for anything. And when we have the 5-second skip on YouTube, and the commercial haven't even started when we get to the 5-second mark, because if you're not into it, click them on. I have no idea what this woman was about to talk about. I can get rid of this.
You go back to 2016, and you know what they referred to the 2015, 2016 period, at least on the internet as, was the Great Meme War of 2016.
That was something that was discussed in NATO as the new battlefield.
Yes, and you can search it. And one of the biggest things that came from that was, and it's a meme in and of itself, the left can't meme. I mean, this is probably pretty good trolling, but the problem is that they're being serious.
I mean,
this video was made. I think they interviewed on. I think it was CBS. One of the news outlets interviewed the creators of that, and they were dead serious. It was a collab of some Hollywood producers that were like, "Let's make this video," and that's what they made. That's producers, directors, whatever. If that's how they perceive things in today's world, you know.
It's funny because much as we're sitting here in uniform and doing alternative things, I am a Hollywood producer, and I have produced a number of feature films and been on a bunch of TV shows. And here's the secret thing that I'm probably not supposed to tell you, so I'm not going to mention any names. I'll do it anyway. Practically everybody I talk to who is a working person in Hollywood on a set, they're on the right. Everybody's around there. No, the damn leftists in Hollywood, and they're destroying. Yeah, there's some creative people. There's some top names. There's some people in charge that may be. But the bread and butter, the hardworking dudes, they're all not on board with this covenant agenda. But they're smart enough to keep their mouth shut about it. It is sad that we have now gone so far divided that I remember 20 years ago, you could have a conversation about politics with two people from opposing sides. Now you're at a point where you can't date somebody who's on a different political side than you. You can't. I mean, you friends, workers. It is insane that the conversation have ended. And I think part of what they've done on the internet is made that a thing.
I think you can't go very far without talking to somebody who doesn't talk to a family member or a cousin or a friend, and because of politics.
And that's sad. But the problem is no longer politics, it's ideology.
Well, people divided are easier to control.
And that really started happening after 2008 and on. That was not really that predominant before, even including the division of the races in this country.
Yeah.
Because when I came, I didn't see that. That was not really a problem. That was everybody got along. And there have been more, like Lincoln said, a house divided onto itself cannot stand. And that is one of the key Marxist strategies, to bring Marx back into this. In order to destroy a country, you have to find someone who's unhappy so they can rise up against the establishment as they see it. And if no one is unhappy, well, then you will damn well find the small minority who are, and then you will fuel their fire and make their problem everybody's problem. And fast forward till today, now we have small minorities' problems are everybody's problem, because everyone have to bend the knee to them. And you can't possibly point out if they're right or wrong. You have to have an opinion. And okay, here's something else. I know we're talking about internet, and we'll get back to that. But here's something that I've noticed, because my other degree I studied psychology. And one of the key things in psychology that now we're going to offend everybody. Oh, well. One of the key points in psychology was to deal with people with traumas or problems, or had situations happen to them, or of course depressions, what have you, and make them okay with who they are. If it was veterans who lost an arm or a leg, give them the psychological tools to be okay with having lost a leg, or people women who'd been raped, God forbid, learn to move on. Now you have a psychology concept that goes completely against that by enforcing people's delusions that they are something they can't be, into now they have, oh no, you want to be a cat? Of course you're a cat. Oh, the whole world should bend to you being a cat, instead of trying to bring them back into the light. And he's like, no, you're really not a cat. Here's the reason. I mean, you're not trying to help people get back to normal. Yeah. You're trying to make crazy normal.
Yeah. Which
doesn't work. By the way, New Zealand, I think the last battle, there's a lot of battleship to DEI hire. Don't know why I brought that up. Anyway.
It's basically,
it was a support ship, not a battleship. We don't have battleships.
George Orwell's 1984.
Everything goes.
And we're living it out.
That's what we talked about with everything disappearing. The memory hole.
Yeah.
That is what the internet has become.
Yeah. Well, they changed the news cycle so frequently and so quickly that the short attention spans that people have developed from information that comes from our devices that we have in our pockets you know, it's created these short attention spans to where they can memory hole something within a week just by changing the news cycle a few times. And it's like you can go from an assassination attempt that nobody talks about to, you know, Kamala's teleprompter failing.
Well, since we're talking politics now, being some, and it's true, and regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, I remember, but this is not that long ago, that just to bring up examples to really throw it in your face, Kamala Harris was made the border czar. Biden said it. Saw the press conference. I saw the press conference. I saw it. I saw all the headlines. I saw all, in the subsequent years, all the reporters and interviews and newscasters use that terminology about her. The very minute, they said a lot of other things about her and her qualifications as president, until the very day she was appointed, not elected, but appointed. Very democratic for people who are all about democracy. We're not democracy, are we? We're a republic, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Anyway, just remember that next time you hear remember that next time you hear an American politician
constitutional
talk about,
republic.
Don't use their language. We are not a democracy. Democracy. Who said that? That was it Ben Franklin? So democracy is two wolves and a sheep deciding on what to eat. Anyway, lost my track there. Everybody remember Kamala's story until she was appointed as the presidential nominee. The very next day, the piece of paper I mentioned earlier went out to all media outlets denouncing that, claiming it was never said, including by media personnel who said it themselves. And I'm sitting here, how do you sleep at night? You are just, okay, they're political. Everyone is a political hag at this point in time. Everyone, which means you can't really trust anyone, so just turn off your TV. Seriously, turn it off. Turn off your phone. Psychologically, you'll be much better off. But you have now, and there are people, after hearing this onslaught from all mainstream media of this denunciation of something that was, how dare these people? It was denounced. But all of a sudden, all right, all of a sudden, and I know there's people out there going to go, hey, maybe I didn't hear it. And that's the problem, is when, what do you usually always say? Well,
cognitive dissonance.
Yes. People will actually convince themselves that they didn't hear what they heard. This is what Jim Marswell has said, believe your lying eyes. You know the economy is rotten right now. You know it. But when then they'll keep telling you, they keep lying to you. They keep telling you, no, it's great, we're doing great, we're doing great. Maybe you ask, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's not because my groceries are now 50% more expensive or gas is twice as much. Maybe it's just me. It's not you. Same thing when they do the statistics. I love this comment with the crime statistics. I love it when Biden said we have fewer murders now than during Donald Trump. Well, that's because a third of the police departments are no longer reporting the numbers. That would be from the big Democratic cities like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They're not reporting the numbers. So it's easy to go down if you just delete the worst of the numbers.
Their requirements for reporting, they change the standards, and what ends up happening. And there's ways to obfuscate certain things, and there's ways for them to not report certain things. And I saw this happen directly. And generally what they can do is when they report those numbers at the end of the year or beginning of the year to the FBI, you see those come out in the stats. Or they can twist and turn them any which way they want. Well, this technically wasn't this, it was actually that. And it just becomes a game.
And if you delay the reportation, then it will come into the next year's stats, and then this year's will look better, like employment numbers. When employment numbers are up, but if you break it down, and this is again where internet searches is a problem. You try to search for the internet number, there's employment numbers are up. Okay, find the breakdown, the division. How many of those new jobs are for American citizens, and how many of them are for aliens? Did the same thing in England. They had 700-some thousand new jobs, but 75% of them were for non-British citizens. So what good exactly does it do you or I? Again, if they diffuse and make it hard for you to make the search and find it, online. That's what it's all about. That is what propaganda can't work if you can look up the truth. Yeah. So you have to obfuscate the truth.
And just kind of to go back to the cognitive dissonance, it's a psychological concept that refers to a mental discomfort or tension that arises when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs, values, or attitudes at the same time, or when their behavior conflicts with their beliefs or values. So you can say a smoker that smokes every day, a pack a day, and he's told it's not good for him. What do most smokers do? They'll justify their actions if they don't want to quit, and some people will quit. It's like who is the actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, that was out preaching about climate change, but he's flying around in his jet. I don't think he's experiencing cognitive dissonance because he's willfully doing that. But that would be if you had somebody that was for the environment, but they don't want to get rid of their gas guzzling car, that would be a form of cognitive dissonance to a certain extent. But
and the climate debate is a whole another animal on its own, because you can't. It's very, very hard again to look up the real information. And I presented a few of them. There's a few really good researchers, if you can actually find them, that things are really not that bad. Yeah, things are heating up a little bit, but it's not because you're driving cars or eating cows. But okay, here's an interesting thing. All right, so the globalist, let's talk about the blob and the globalist elite and Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and all these complete lunatics who want us all to be dead, so we go to a net zero. Here's a problem.
You will own nothing.
I will own nothing and be happy. If my imaginary assistant is around, then we'll talk. Bribery through attractive women and money. But if I own nothing, then what good is the money? Never mind. Okay, here's a problem with that whole idea. Basically, they want you to start. Everything has to go electric. No more fossil fuels. No more cow farm. We'll keep food out of this conversation. You destroy fossil fuels. Now, first of all, deaths from climate-affected deaths have gone down over the past couple of decades, but let's leave that as may. But if there is climate emergencies due to weather change, man-made or not, let's leave that out of the equation. What you need to survive these is fuel. You need fossil fuel, cheap and plenty and a lot of it, to get through these crises. But that's not even where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this, when we talk to the internet and AI, is a whole different direction. Because, okay, we don't have the electricity capacity to make every car electric. They, of course, don't want you to have cars. They want you to live in 15-minute cities, so you don't get to go anywhere anyway. So we take away 75% of the cars, which is what they said they wanted. It's by 2035 or something. I have that somewhere. Take away 75% of the ownership of cars. No one gets cars. You get but still, everything goes electric. And no coal fuel, no coal plants. So we have solar panels and wind, which is not nearly as good as they say, even if they were to release the true, really good solar panels. Well, but that's not the problem with this. And AI is that AI needs a gigantic amount of server banks.
Yeah.
Enormous. They will eat up enough power to fuel a city. Well, and if you destroy all the fuel production, your AI will not work.
Well, the best was, what was it, in California? When they had passed their law to have all electric vehicles by 2030.
Yeah.
And then I think that right after that, there was a power shortage.
Yeah, that was.
And then after that, they were telling people they couldn't charge their electric vehicles.
I remember.
And you're sitting there, and all the people in their gas trucks are probably laughing at the electric vehicle owners. But and it's nonsense.
It's the whole thing. You don't have the grid. You don't have. We will one day probably be majority electric, but it's 100 years from now. It will require nuclear, and I'm just saying thorium, and I'm just saying that to those of you who know me know why I'm saying that. But that's a different story.
And you got what I sent you the other day about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can't do this on solar and wind because it's not good enough. And if you are under the impression that electric vehicles are actually ecological or green, I suggest you go take a look at the part of the planet where the child slaves are digging it out of the ground and destroying the environment and dying.
That and what's fueling most of these electric vehicles right now.
Oh, the coal power plant.
No, it's the battery chargers that are being charged by
The
fossil fuels.
Yeah, of course. I mean, your ideas don't work, and I think the globalist elite are going to have to make a choice. Do you want to pursue this lunacy clean agenda, or do you want your AI to work? Even the former head of Google said that. So we can't do this. We don't have the power for it. We have to import power. Where's that going to come from? Oh. So they're contradicting themselves, and I would love if you could actually look up online and get some. Again, you can find it, but it is, how do they suppress websites and search things? We talked about that. That's your thing.
Guided web traffic, search engines. You know, so what you type in Google, they're not going to give you something that conflicts with what the current trends or propaganda push is conflicted with.
Or push you onto dead links.
Yeah, and then to top it off, you know, they'll DDoS some of these sites. They'll take them down. They'll make it hard for some of these sites to just exist. You know, some of the DNS services, they remove, you know, some of these sites, and they just become dead links that only exist on, you know, back to what we were saying in the beginning, Internet Archive websites. There's a few others, but the most famous being Internet Archive because of the recent attack on that site. And that being huge because of the amount of resources, materials, not just websites, but legitimate copies of books, music, other texts, drawings, magazines, everything that they host and save, and which is why they're also dealing with issues of copyright infringement and whatnot. So that's a whole other. They are making it deliberately hard in a lot to find things, and also because they're also counting on people being too lazy to look. And it is interesting why something like libraries and archives, internet archives. And again, I said, download everything, screenshot everything, keep everything. I have so many times people, they send me a link to something that went online. So you have to see this. It's about this or that or the other in my research. And then I go to the link 2-3 days later and it's gone. And it happens way more often than I would think. I store things, I save things, but if I don't actually save them to my own devices and back them up, I can count on these things might be done, might disappear. I keep all my books because you can't go in and re-edit a book. And these things are slowly happening also as the school curriculum has changed to a less than optimal teaching, shall we say, because you can't have people creative with critical thinking, asking questions, because then you'll start realizing, why is this so hard? And when you're doing your searches online and you're looking for things, you ask, why is this so hard to find? And it is that hard to find deliberately. I don't know. There's just ways to bury a lot of these sites. Most people, like I said, won't search further than a search engine, unfortunately, and the most popular being Google. You know, ask people, how many search engines are you aware of? Yeah. You'll only get maybe 2. If not, they'll just say Google, which is kind of weird. And there are other search engines. I mean, and surprisingly, you get more interesting results from, you know,
Yandex
or
other,
than you would Google. And it's, I mean, that should just kind of paint the picture. And I can't really see an argument for them doing that. A lot of it too is part of their AdSense. You know, people can pay to boost their site to the top search result for any given topic. And that's what, you know, hackers tend to do. That's what people that want to exploit other people to try to guide them to their website over something else. This has happened in the gaming sphere.
Yeah.
Where a popular, you know, let's just say aimbot for a first-person shooter, something that'll help you lock onto your target a lot quicker, you'll get a group that wants to put out a malicious tool that can exploit their machine. They'll pay to boost their site that's a replica of the site that they're targeting. And
within the game?
No, for the service for the game. And then they'll get traffic, and people will download their tool, even give them money maybe, and then they've now downloaded a malicious, malware or virus to their computer, and then now they have control over their computer.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. I mean, you go even further back. I believe there was a case where a guy had pointed out an issue to his local FBI office that Google AdSense was causing problems because it's allowing anybody to boost traffic to the top of the search results. So if you search for something, that first thing you get may not be what you think it is. So what this guy ended up doing, when they basically brushed him off after he tried to tell him this, he put up his own Google ad as an FBI office and got it boosted to the top. And people were calling his number thinking it was the FBI office. But what this guy was doing was taking the calls and redirecting them to the actual FBI office and recording the calls. Ooh. So he did this for a short period of time, and then he went back to the FBI office and showed them what he did, and they arrested him. But then they realized what he was trying to point out to them. I forgot what they ended up doing with the guy. I don't think it was anything substantial, but he was basically trying to make a point.
Yeah.
That this is how misguided Google searches can be sometimes, and people take it like it's gospel. For anybody that's religious or whatever you believe, whether you believe something or nothing, it doesn't matter. But like, you go to that Google search engine, you believe you're going to get something for whatever you're looking for.
Say the magic word, Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Why
and Wikipedia is another one.
And you see them underneath referred to by YouTube and Google all the time as the end-all, be-all. And I remember when I went to school, there wasn't any. Never mind. When you went to school, you're younger than me, right?
Yeah.
When you went to school, you were probably told in school in history class that don't trust Wikipedia because it's just independent people writing. Sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's a good reference, and sometimes it's complete baloney. And sometimes you'll see Wikipedia, which is used as the end-all, be-all, will change their definitions of things like what's a woman, things like that. That's a definition that historically have changed all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a very philosophical topic.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, no, let's not go there. But again, you've been pointed in a direction that is less than stellar.
And another thing that you've seen associated with this, and I think they've done a really poor job of making sure some of these companies are held to account, is the Internet Censorship Act.
Yes.
Section 230 protections that basically designate a website or a service as a platform versus a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing a lot of these social media sites that were provably, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
You saw Zuckerberg come out recently and make an apology for controlling information during the COVID era
and election, which happened to be
happened to be within that COVID era.
Yeah.
Saying that he wouldn't do it again or whatever. But what you were seeing active censorship on a platform which should have made it a publisher at that point. If they're going to censor, if they're going to control what information their platform or their service is providing, they're a publisher. They're not a platform.
You can't have it both ways. The only thing that scares the living crap out of me about that that particular act is that Hillary Clinton is in favor of it. And that tells me that tells me that's terrifying. She actually came and said in an interview a couple of days ago that we can't just have this wild internet without control, because then they will lose. Since you said that, and I quote, then they will lose total control.
She wants to push it even further.
Yes, because she
wants to give the government more power to control what people say.
And I really don't want Hillary Clinton to have total control of anything.
Basically, at least for us in the U.S., taking away our First Amendment rights. I mean, you have sites that they've historically touted as right-wing extremist conspiracy sites that were basically on the side of free speech to, you know, a very far extent.
Yeah.
And I mean, true free speech is sometimes it's just not pretty.
Yeah.
And everyone's so sensitive nowadays that they want it to be dressed up and pretty and beautiful and in a nice package. But unfortunately, that's generally not
that's
how
not the real world.
Is.
And a lot of good things are not created by peaceful, beautiful people that are all politically correct. I mean, I'm just talking about who's been protecting your nations for the past 100 years. Because I guarantee you, there might not all be people you want sitting at your dinner table, but you sure as hell want them on that wall protecting you. But it's interesting when they said that because the head of the UN just came out and simultaneously said the same thing, that this whole freedom of speech thing, the internet needs to be a collective effort be done to control this. They want to complete control over speech. And that is terrifying. And it should be.
They co-opted cancel culture in the mainstream media to target people they didn't like, to remove them from the internet, or at least try, you know, and completely just cancel them out. So that was another way. They weren't enforcing, you know, 230 protections. You have cancel culture. You know, you have these misguided Google search results. You have, you know, they just bury
it's very
your web
it's very dictatorial.
Yeah.
And that works for the left-wing world because conservatives are don't usually do any of this. They don't go out and boycott things. And well, they started.
And we're already there. For people that think that we're not there, we're living through it.
Yeah.
It's the information you're seeing is extremely controlled. The only reason you're maybe not as completely a bot as you would think is because there's enough people on social media that are trying to open everyone else's eyes and bring these topics to the forefront. And that's where mainstream media has an issue with influencers and whatnot. And you saw that.
Yes.
That you saw that rise. That was also around 2016. I mean, there tends to be a really weird common occurrence about the timeline when a lot of this stuff started and what was actually going on. So in you know,
it's troublesome for politicians and Hollywood stars especially, because they used to be, I don't know, when exactly did we start taking political advice from half-baked actors?
I've never taken political advice from half-baked.
I'm not saying that all actors are half-baked. God knows I'm theoretically an actor.
No,
but I'm not half-baked.
It's just interesting to me that they feel they're
entitled.
Yes,
they
think their opinion matters.
It's like Taylor Swift. You can sing. But why is it you think your opinion should unfold? And I don't understand. That might don't understand why entertainers entertain to both the 50% on the right and the 50% on the left, or the 40-40 with the 20 in the middle. Stop talking politics. You can sell your product to everybody. Wasn't Mike Jordan who did that? Like, I'm endorsing everybody. Like, I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm selling to everyone. And that's you can always work your way backwards. Well, from something happened, something said something went boom in the night, some commercial, some promotion, something. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. Especially when you get to see, if you get to see it on primetime TV, it's there for a reason. For this time.
I think coincidences, by and large, can be an excuse for somebody's ineptitude to explain why something happened.
Never. You can always explain. You can always explain away. Damn, what? It's been a while.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, the stupidity versus design. It'll be on the screen by now, because by the time I release this, it'll be I'll have remembered.
Which is usually too late.
Well, usually after it's done, yeah. But no, it's. I'm just thinking about all the things that we talked about conspiracy theories, which was conspiracy theorist again is one of those delightful terms that's been designed by the CIA to discredit anybody who says things they're not. Never attribute to mediocre malice what can be adequately explained by stupidity. Thank you.
There you go.
That's the one I was looking for. AI came up with it. I never said intelligent. I just read books. But I think that is why the CIA came up with the term conspiracy theorist. And now that's been specifically to debunk people who were saying things about them that was true. So now everyone who have a theory can be ridiculed by that label. Problem is, when you start going back now, and yeah, there are some wild conspiracies. Granted, there's lots of that. But there's also more and more of them that have been proven to come true, which is rather terrifying. And, I mean, polio vaccines, that was fake back in the Tonkin Gulf.
You know, there was a...
lots and lots of stories that's been put out there. I mean, we're talking about the same government that today is telling me I have to trust whatever they say, who actually sprayed flu all over San Francisco 20, 30 years ago, 40, maybe 50, probably, time flies, to see if how aerosol contagion would work. It's not like the government has always done right by us. Ever. I mean, sometimes. They must have done something right at some point. I mean, I think that's why most people who are at least on a conservative mindset just want less government and government to stay out of the way. And that's what I keep hearing around Europeans who are now drowning in big government. Just get the government out of the way and let us live our lives. And I think, and that in itself is a threat to the globalist agenda, because that doesn't work with them. If they don't have control, they don't have control. And I don't know why control is so important. And I think a lot of people really need to start thinking about how important freedom really is to them, because every little freedom you give away, you're not getting it back unless you force it back. And that time may be coming where we're actually going to have to start fighting for our freedom.